Hi everybody, I'm Sherry Ribby with Garden Gate Magazine, and today we're visiting Lisa Graff with Lux Perennials Nursery here in Portland, Oregon, and looking at her beautiful garden. Thanks for having us, Lisa.
It's just great. I love having visitors in my garden because what gardener doesn't love to show off all their flowers,
no kidding,
and beautiful colors and that kind of thing.
Well, you have some great ones here, but how did you get started? What was the sort of the beginning of your garden?
Yeah, so it turns out over the years I learned I'm kind of an English garden groupie. So I love English gardens. The mass of color, flowers, textures, it just speaks to me. And so that's what I wanted to create here in Portland.
And it's looking great even in fall. I mean, I kind of think of English gardens as summer gardens, but late September and the dahlias look fabulous, and asters, it looks really great.
That is a big focus of the garden. So one thing I've learned in the few decades I've been doing gardening is that there's all different cultivars and types, and that I could really have a garden that goes from, you know, certainly April all the way through almost November.
Oh, nice.
Here in Oregon, if I pick the right variety of geranium, the right variety of hydrangea or salvia or whatever it is, and really keep this long season of color for the whole garden.
Yeah, I know we were talking earlier and you mentioned how you've been trying different varieties and found some geums that you really like, and some geraniums and dahlias, and we can see these beautiful dahlias here that kind of represent your color scheme a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, no, it's a great example. So, in fact, there's over 400 varieties of geraniums.
Wow.
And customers in the nursery sometimes say, I thought they're all annuals. I'm like, no. There's perennial geraniums. There are annuals. Some bloom a very short time. This is my favorite. I think it's probably the best on the market. It's called Geranium Roseanne.
Oh, yeah.
It blooms
That's a good
for
one.
5 months here in Oregon. You get these sweeps of spectacular purple that I weave all throughout the garden.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And don't you like to try some specialty plants as well?
I love having not just the long bloomers in here that just give you massive color, but then you get these really unusual plants that when people see them, like, I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So one of the plants I love, and the kind of plant I love putting in, is like this rheum here. Of course, I want hydrangeas and roses and all those kinds of plants everybody knows in the garden. But then you have to have that pop of something that's really unusual. This is rheum, or ornamental rhubarb. It has these huge jagged leaves, which just make such a structural impact in the garden, such great contrast with the small leaves of everything else. But in May, it puts up a flower stalk that is 6 feet tall of pink. And I have 9 of them across the whole garden. And in May, it just stops people in their tracks.
That sounds really fantastic. And it's perennial.
It's perennial. It's actually some of these unusual plants can be difficult to grow, but not this guy. It's been really easy.
Great.
I just planted it like I do everything with some compost.
Yeah.
Give it about average water. And maybe watch for slugs, and then it's happy.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is excellent. So Lisa, I noticed when we came in the backyard that you've got 2 beds on either side, but they're similar, but they're really different too. How do you separate the two?
Well, I have enough space I can make kind of themed gardens. It might be a dahlia bed, it might be a color scheme, so it's all different things. So for example, in this bed, it's really kind of about the purple and, you know, riffs on orange or coral. So like with these beautiful asters, which are just really an extension of this boxwood hedge until now.
Yeah.
And they explode in purple, and the pollinators love them. There's always bees and butterflies everywhere. And it's a great color contrast with the orange. And then this sort of lighter peachy orange goes to a more coral pink, and then a deeper burgundy. And so it's kind of a blend of those colors.
Very pretty. Yeah. And then I noticed there's probably more yellow and orange on the other side.
Yeah, and on the other side is deeper oranges, not only in the flowers, but even the trees as they turn in the fall.
Yeah.
And royal purples and that kind of color scheme.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a great way to tie it all together with some color there. So, well, maybe we can do a little more walking and see what else you got going on.
Sounds good.
Lisa, I couldn't help but miss this hydrangea here. It's beautiful. Which one is it?
This one is Pinky Winky.
Nice.
It's a bit of a later bloomer than some of the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, so one of the things I try to do in the garden is stage plants that have different bloom cycles. So with hydrangeas, some start in June, even early June, and some, like this beauty, don't really get their full beautiful color until later on. In this case, probably August, September is when it looks the best.
Yeah.
So you can have kind of a wave of hydrangeas with one starting in June, July, and then it starts to fade a bit, and the next July, August, September, and so on until you get to fall, and still you have this beauty September and October.
That looks great. That looks great. And you've still got roses going on and some Russian sage. I see a lot of pollinators on it. That's really wonderful.
We do a lot of pruning and deadheading in this garden to keep the flowers coming all the time.
Oh, that would make sense. As we were walking along, Lisa, I noticed this Centranthus. It looks really great. Now, I usually think of it as like blooming a little earlier. So what's your secret?
Yeah, I know. You know, one secret for getting plants to bloom well in the fall is to get ones that bloom a long time that start in the spring.
Oh,
so you're absolutely right. They are a spring bloomer. And isn't it beautiful?
I love the color.
Raspberry pink, which I love. Sweep it through the garden. So the secret to this is, and by the way, it starts blooming for us here in May, which is kind of early for perennials in Portland. So to get early color is great. Is you have to keep clipping off the spent flowers.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, if you don't, the plant looks completely bare of flowers.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the plants that needs the most deadheading, but it's the most rewarding. 5 months of bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then you have a little wallflower tucked in there, I see.
Yeah, and this actually is a good example of the spring combo. So in Oregon, with our cold winters and rain, although you guys are colder where you are, but my favorite spring combo, because they bloom so long, is Centranthus. So the beautiful pink, the purple of the wallflower. Both of those, the wallflower starts in April, this one in May. And then there's some Geraniums that are in the garden that are orange. Yeah. And they start in April. And that pink, orange, and purple is this incredible spring combo that just loads the bed with color.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
And I see you like orange. This is a lovely orange bucket.
Yes. Normally I don't decorate my garden with these buckets. However, you may have noticed we have a lot of moles in our garden.
Oh.
It's a frequent problem
with
gardens. They love the moisture soil here. And so, so we have mole traps.
Okay.
And since moles are territorial, even though we seem to have 1,000 mole holes, if we get 1 or 2 of them, we've probably solved our problem for a month till the new guy moves in.
Well, you found a solution. I know it's a really challenging problem.
It's a challenging problem to solve. And
yeah. Well, we'll go talk about flowers. They're more fun.
Oh, that's more fun. Yeah.
Now, this is your newest garden, isn't it, Lisa?
It is. I designed this about 3 years ago.
Oh, it's looking great. I mean, everything's growing so well. What do you do with your soil?
To me, the most important thing is soil and amendments. We put about 4 inches of garden compost on top of this. First of all, we took all the grass out. So that was a whole process of getting rid of that. Yeah. Once that was done, 4 inches of compost tilled into 12 inches. So you have this fluffy soil where it was clay. Okay, it's not that fluffy, but much better. Yeah.
Because you mix in some of the native soil too,
yes,
right?
It's basically 2/3 native soil, 1/3 compost. Mix it well, and then you have sort of lighter soil, at least slightly lighter, that the roots of the plants can go through. And that's, I think, why they grew so fast, is the roots could just get established.
Sure. It looks fabulous. So what are you doing in this garden bed? What are you putting I know you mentioned combos, so.
Yeah, I love creating garden combos. I'm just a little obsessed with it. So, and I also do garden classes at my nursery, and I was thinking of ways, how can I kind of simplify this process? Maybe for me too, really. So I do it in 2 stages. The first stage is I think of it almost as just shapes, and I force myself to think in black and white, which is really hard because I love color. But I think of 3 kinds of shapes. Big round flowers, like these beautiful hydrangeas here. They have big round flowers. The dahlias have, round flowers, roses, camellias, things like that. So I use round flowers. And then the second thing I do is vertical, so spires of flowers. And that can be these beautiful Agastaki or hummingbird mint here in the spires of purple. There's spires of purple salvia back there, or the persicaria in pink. But they're just vertical flowers, so that vertical shape and that big round shape are great contrast.
Yeah, sounds great.
And then the third one isn't really a shape, but I think it just makes the combination come together. And I just kind of call it a sweep of color. So for example, it's supposed to be a river, actually, a river of flowers. There is a river of Geranium roseanne that just sweeps and winds through this whole bed here and just creates this mass of purple through the whole thing. So you have round shapes, you have sweeps of color, and you have vertical shapes.
Nice.
And that's the shape thing of it.
Well, it's certainly working here.
Yeah, thank you. And then the fun part is when you overlay the color. So what I do is I don't know. I just like my favorite colors. It's my garden. I can do whatever I want. So
Exactly.
I pick my favorite colors, and I encourage people to do things they love. And so my favorite colors are like a hot pink or a coral. So I start with that. So the hydrangeas are this beautiful deep pink. And when they start out, they are dark, deep pink. That's hydrangea glowing embers. It's just a beautiful variety. This dahlia intrigue is in this lovely coral color, such a deep kind of jewel tone coral. So I start with those kinds of colors.
Sure.
Then I'll add in purples and maybe blue, although mostly purples, to kind of cool it off. So a little of the hot color, a little of the cool color. And then I'll start to mix and match between them. So for example, the hydrangea, it's a big round flower and it's pink. The persicaria is also in that same shade of pink, but it's my vertical shape. And then I add in this beautiful pink yarrow, and it has a nice foliage too, which you can't forget the foliage. So a flat pink. So flat pink, vertical pink, round pink. And then I'm imitating that in big round purple, spire of purple. And lastly, I'll layer in a few pops of other colors. I love orange also. Okay, now you think I love all colors, which is maybe true. Not a huge fan of yellow, but this geum here, which is actually the best-selling plant at my nursery because it's evergreen and bloomed for 6 months, and it kind of died. It kind of stops blooming so much in the summer and then a little more in fall, but blooms heavy in the spring. Is orange, so pops of orange and then pops of burgundy. And this garden is a great example of pops of burgundy with the amaranth coming up, which seeds itself, and I let it kind of go where it likes to. And the burgundy amaranth, and then we have this kind of forest of castor bean, which is a really unusual plant.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. The seeds are very poisonous.
Yes, you have to be careful with that.
But you'll see them in botanical gardens, and we have them here in the front where our chickens can't get to them. And
sure.
It's this deep burgundy, and it makes all those corals and pinks pop.
Yeah.
And just that kind of combining all those colors, textures, heights, and shapes, just for me creates this garden that I love to be in.
Yeah. I love to be in it too. It's really nice. This dahlia really drew me down the path. Lisa, it's so pretty. This beautiful color, and there's so many. Now, do dahlias overwinter here, or do you have to dig the tubers?
Well, I used to not ever dig the tubers, and then I would lose them. So that was a bummer. So about half the dahlias I would plant wouldn't make it over the winter because our winters are so wet. Many times people think, oh, I lost my dahlia because it was cold. But the reality is it's the wet winter that gets, if something's going to get the plant, it's the wet winter, because the dahlia tuber hates being soaking wet. It hates wet feet. So what I tried and learned from some other nursery people around Oregon was just to plant it completely differently.
Okay.
So what I do is I plant my dahlias, tubers or plants, in a wide hole, but I do that with all the plants, wide hole and about the depth of the pot. And then I mix in half of our native soil, which is clay, like many places around, and then 25% garden compost and 25% clean gravel.
Okay.
So that mix that all together in the planting hole, put the plant in, and then I pile that gravel around the top, just little mounds of gravel, and that helps the dahlia over winter when it rains on it forever to shed some of the water off and not be so wet underneath.
So by clean gravel, do you just and how big a gravel? Is it like a chicken grit?
So that's a great question. So it's called 1/4-10.
Okay.
And it means that there's no sand in it. So it's 1/4-inch pieces.
Okay.
Because frequently 1/4- is used for paths. It has sand and it packs down like cement.
Okay.
And that is not what you want on the roots of your
that would
dahlia.
not be
That would be so bad.
That would not be good.
So yeah. So that's what I do
good
to
to
help.
know.
And now 90% of my dahlias come back every year.
That is excellent. Yeah.
Much better than digging them up.
Oh, yes. Yeah. A lot less will save you a lot of work, so you can deadhead the Centranthus.
Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us to your garden. It was such a beautiful tour, and I really appreciate you having us.
I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for coming out to visit.
Of course.